Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to video number 21 in the How to Make a 2D Platformer course. In this video we're going to take a look at doing a lot of UI work and also implementing the wave spawner that I'm going to talk about in a sec. So kind of a wave countdown timer and a wave incoming text and stuff like that. So basically, it's been a while since I've updated this 2D platformer course, and there are two good reasons for that. The first one is that I've started this how to make a multiplayer FPS course also in Unity using UNet, which I definitely suggest you check out. I'm very proud of this series and you guys have given me great feedback so far. So that's on the screen right now. And it's also, of course, in C#. And then I've also made this making a wave spawner tutorial, which is also on the screen. And it was kind of meant as a continuation of the 2D platformer course, but since making a wave spawner is something you have to do for a lot of games, I kind of created this own separate tutorial so other people would find it interesting too. But that's definitely something that you will want to check out before doing this tutorial, or you will have a very hard time following along, because we're going to be using the script created in that video and then adding UI on top of that. So if we start up Unity now, you can see here that on the GM object there is now a wave spawner script, and we have these different properties where we can add waves, give the names, and add the enemy prefab, a count and a spawn rate and all that. We have some spawn points and we have this time between waves that we can tweak. So basically, if I just put the to-do list on the screen here, you can see that there are quite a few things that we have to do, so let's just get started. First of all, I want to fix a UI bug that's been happening on my system at least, where if we press play and wait for some enemies to spawn here, their HP bar isn't showing, and if it is, it's showing very weirdly. And if we drag one of these prefabs into the scene here while not playing, you can see that there's no issue when looking close, but when we then scroll out, it simply just disappears. And I found that this bug is kind of weird, but I found an easy fix, which is simply going under the health bar here and then inputting a white source image. So just like a 2x2 white texture, and that will act as basically not having a sprite, and that will kind of get rid of the error. So if we just open Photoshop or any photo editing application of your choice, you can also just search Google for white image, and then we'll just quickly create one here. So Photoshop is loading up, and I'll simply go ahead and create a new workspace here, simply 2x2, and we'll just call this white text. And we're simply going to be using the default white background here. So we can go ahead and save that. And I don't think there's any reason to save this as a Photoshop file, so I'll just save it as a JPEG and simply navigate to your project folder. Mine is here under assets and the sprites there. So simply white text.jpg, and the quality is not going to matter here. And we can now close down Photoshop, wait for Unity to import it here. Looks like it's already done that. And now simply here select the white text. And now you can see that when we scroll out, the problem has disappeared. And this is a good idea to do for all of your aliens and future empty textures if you just want this box. And we can go ahead and do the same for the player. So if we just find the player status indicator, we can search for white text and hit apply on that too. Good, so that was fixing a bug. So we can now cross that off the list. Then we have to place some spawn points, because the new wave spawner system here has this spawn point system where we add points to an array, and you can see that I've added 3 points so far. So what we'll do here is we'll need to make sure that enemies spawn with outside our field of view, and it would be interesting if they would just always spawn at some point that we can see and then come and chase us. So what we can do in order to achieve this effect very easily is simply find our camera and take the spawn points, which are currently under the GM object, and simply drag them under our camera. And the main let's just drag them under camera, which should be fine, and hit apply on the GM object there so we don't lose the prefab connection. And then we can just place them somewhere outside of the camera here. So I'm gonna place them kind of like this. So they'll pretty much always appear to come from above, but that's fine for me for now at least. So that will just make sure that they don't spawn on the screen here. So that's fine. And of course, when they are parented to the camera, when the player moves or the camera moves, the spawn points are going to move with it. So if we just want to check that out in effect here, so we'll wait 3 seconds and they'll spawn and they will come into the camera view here. So you can see just what that looks like. Cool. So that was already 2 points. Next up, we're going to be kind of first creating the wave UI. Then we are going to do some animations, and then we're going to create a script that will play these animations depending on the wave state. So let's start by creating the UI here. So let's right click, go under UI, and let's create an empty canvas. And let's name this UI overlay. I want some kind of game UI overlay that will store all of the stuff that don't move with any particular object, but is just kind of put onto the screen. So that's what this is going to be for. And therefore I want this to be set to screen space overlay. I want it to be pixel perfect and the sort order to be fairly high, but because not many objects are going to overlay this UI. So let's just set the sort order to 1 or 2, depending on what you want to do. So, and the rest of the settings here are going to be just fine. Now we can right click on this, go under UI, and then create a text object. And you can see that I've imported this computer pack, and this contains different fonts that I often use. And I've shown this in other tutorials. But if we go to Window and then Asset Store, if I can find it here, Asset Store there, and load this up, then you can search for computer font. And you can see that there's this free computer font pack, and this has a bunch of different fonts that you can see are very pixelated or fairly cool. So we are going to be using a font from there. You can of course go to any place and get your own fonts. A good place is, for example, dafont.com. And once you've loaded that in, we can simply select it here, and I'm going to be using the Lilliput steps here. I think that has a very cool look to it, especially if you use only capital letters. So let's go ahead and make this white, and let's change the text here to wave. So we're gonna have wave and then a big red number and then incoming. So I'm gonna change the controls here and scale this up, center the text, and bump up the font size quite a bit. So I want this to be very big and scary like. So something like 40 is going to be fairly great, I think. And let's just change this to wave text so we know what it is. And then we can add a component because we're now in the game. You can see that this white text is not too clear, especially if we view it when there's something passing by. And therefore we can add a small shadow here just to give it a bit of contrast. That might not make the biggest difference, but I think it looks a lot better when you have that contrast to the text. And then we can duplicate this. And we can drag the duplicate down, and we can make this a scary big number. So let's just input 5 here, change the font size to something like 90, and of course we're going to have to expand this, and make this red. Yeah, that looks very great. And then we can take the wave text here and just move it closer to the actual font, something like that. And we can rename this to wave count text or wave number text. And we can duplicate the wave text here, rename this to wave incoming text. Drag this down and input wave or incoming here. Cool. So you can see what that looks like, and I think that gives a pretty great effect. What we want to do is, of course, move this up so it doesn't overlay our player. Something like this. I think we could move it up even further. Yeah, that looks pretty fun. Might want to change the wave and incoming text here to have a bit smaller font. Something like that is better, I think. And we can also move it closer. Yeah, I think that looks very great. That makes the wave number, the actual wave number, really pop. So that's pretty cool. And let's just create an empty object to kind of host these objects, to be act as a parent for these objects. And in order to do this, let's just drag it up here and scale it to fit the elements. And then let's drag these under that object. And you can see that they are all automatically centered. Their anchor points are centered on that object. And now we can simply go ahead and anchor this to the top. So when our canvas scales, you can see that that will follow. And apparently these aren't. Well, they are. They just aren't updating. So you can see here that if we were to take our game view and scale it down, you can see the elements will follow. Cool. I think that's kind of the best that we are going to get this easily, at least. Maybe move it up a bit to account for smaller screen sizes. So that's going to be fine for now. And we can go ahead and call this something like wave incoming. And then we're going to create another text element, and we can simply duplicate one of these. Move it outside the wave incoming, and let's just center that. And this is going to, actually, let's not duplicate this. Let's duplicate the actual number. Move it out. And let's disable wave incoming. And let's rename this to wave countdown text. And let's make this white. And I think that's pretty much all we have to do here. So let's just change the number there to 3 so we can see what we're doing. And you can see now that we have this countdown that goes 3, 2, 1, 0. That fades out. And the wave incoming text fades in. So I think that's going to look super cool. For now, let's just disable both objects and we'll enable them through the animator. Awesome. So now that we have that done, we can focus back onto our actual game here. And let's see what we have to do. So now we need to create some animations. So actually we're going to focus back here. And let's go ahead and create a new animation. So if you haven't docked this yet, you can go to Window and then Animation. And make sure you go under Animation and not Animator. We've talked about that before. And this looks a bit different now than it did before, definitely better. And let's just hit create. And let's name this animation the wave countdown animation. And let's just save that. And I think that looks fairly great. Actually, what I want to do, yeah, okay, I changed my mind. So let's remove that. Let's remove the 2 animations here. We're just going to make a small change. Instead of having this UI overlay and then the animator sit on that, I think we're going to handle all of our wave UI separately from other UI overlay elements that we might want to have. So let's create another empty object here, and let's just scale that to fit the entire screen. So I've anchored it to fit the screen, but I also scaled it at the same time by holding down Alt and then clicking here. And then we can drag under this object, we can drag the wave countdown text and the wave incoming object. And let's just rename this to wave UI. Cool, so we have this parent object. And now we can create the animator. Make this the wave countdown animation. And we're just going to start with that. And then you can see we have this wave UI controller or animator. So animation controller it is. Cool. So now we simply need to edit some properties here. So if we just disable the animation here, basically what we want to be doing is we want to be editing the wave countdown text. And we want to be scaling this and changing the opacity. So we can go ahead and add a canvas group. And this will allow us to easily change the alpha on this object. So the wave countdown text is going to, if we hit record, first of all, enable. And then we're going to change the scale. First off, we're going to start with a scale of 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Z actually doesn't matter, but I like scaling uniformly. And an alpha of 0. And you can see that it's automatically created, because I went over to this point on the timeline, it's automatically created keyframes for the other values, so 111 and alpha 1. And now we can simply swap these keyframes. So the canvas and the scale, the game object we want to enable immediately, we can simply swap these. So put that down there and put this over here. And now with almost no work, actually let's just right click and select flat. With almost no work, we've created this cool fade in animation. So that's all we needed to do there. Then we can create a separate animation that will fade in the wave incoming text. And fade out this wave countdown text. So let's create a new clip and let's call this wave incoming. Yep, that's good. And that sits there, everything's fine. And what this will do is it will go ahead and fade out the wave countdown text. So it will start out by being enabled and having an alpha of 1. So we can just change this to create a keyframe there and then change it back to 1. And then after half a minute or half a second, we're going to change the alpha down to 0, and then we're going to disable this object. So now we've created the fade out for that object, and then we can focus on the wave incoming object. And I want to exit the record mode here, add a canvas group to this also, and enter recording again. And we want to enable this object at this point. And we also want to change the alpha to 0 and the scale to 1.5. Actually, let's not do anything for the scale on this object. So let's just disable the entire scale component there. And whoops, it didn't for some reason. There we go. And let's select the canvas group for wave incoming, and we can just drag this over to make it fade in instead. So you can see the effect that that has. And we need to zoom out here. Let's make it have quite a fade in. Then we can make a copy of those keyframes. Simply Control-C, Control-V. Drag this over. Make a copy of the alpha 0 keyframe. And drag that over again. And then we can right click on all of this and hit flat. So now we have, when we hit play, the text fades out, the wave countdown text fades out, and the wave incoming text fades in instead. And I want to give a bit more time to the wave incoming tag here, so let's just drag that out and drag that out. Oops. And maybe make it stay with a full opacity for a bit longer here so you can see what that looks like. And I think that's much better. So that was all we needed to do for the animation, because the actual text of the object is something that we're going to be changing through a script. So now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and add a relationship between these in the animators that makes sense. So let's just find the Wave UI animation controller here, go under the animator, and we can have a look at this. So basically the default animation is going to be the wave countdown, because right when we start out the game, we're going to have some kind of countdown. And so that's fine. This is going to be the default state. And if it isn't orange, you can simply right click and hit the set as layer default state. And that means that we are going to have an automatic transition from the entry point to the wave countdown state. So that's fine. And now we want to create a transition from this to wave incoming. And we want to add a criteria to this. So therefore we can add a parameter. So let's add one here. And ideally we would be using triggers for this, but I experienced quite a few problems when using triggers. So instead we're going to be using bools. And that's going to work just fine. Triggers is a newer invention in the Unity animation system. And I've been using bools for a long time and creating fully working games with this. So don't worry, it's not a bad solution. It's just a different one. And in here, we're simply going to call this the wave incoming. And we're going to make another one for wave countdown. And all we need to do here is simply select the transition, add as a condition that wave incoming is true. You can see that it did that automatically. So that's perfect. And then we want to disable exit time. And we want to set the, we want it to have a fixed duration, but a duration of 0. So that should make it transition correctly, and we can maybe just set that to 0 and then disable has exit time, just so that this makes sense to look at. And then we make a transition that goes the other way, where the condition is that wave countdown equals true. And we do the same here, so we want to set that to 0, disable has exit time, and set a duration of 0. So that will just make these transitions atomic, meaning that we don't have any fade in or fade out time, because we've created the actual fade in and fade outs and all the transitions in the animations themselves. So we don't want Unity to have any control over that. So that's all we need to do. And now we can actually go into the game. And this won't be paired with anything. Whoops, we have to turn on looping on both wave countdown and the wave incoming animations. So now we can hit play, and you can see that fades in, and imagine that this is changing. Then we can hit wave incoming, and you can see transitions over there, and we disable that, and we go back to, whoops, for some reason that went back automatically, which is definitely not something that we want. So wave countdown to true. I don't remember setting that. So this is weird. Let's just try and hit play on that again. So, oops, we want to disable these from the start. So hit play there. And then wave incoming. And that works fine, good. And then wave countdown, and that's going to be disabled. Good. So things are working, but these are going to be shifting, and we're going to be doing that through a script. So these weird things won't happen. But you get the idea, hopefully. So let's save that, and I'm just going to clear the console here, and we can go ahead and create a script that will manage this. So you can see that now we've reached the final point, which is doing the actual programming.